In the deepest trenches of the ocean, where sunlight dared not tread, ruled the king of the sea. His throne was carved from ancient coral, his crown a constellation of luminous pearls. His subjects were the myriad creatures of the deep, and his voice was the tide itself, powerful and unyielding. Above, in a world bathed in sun and painted with green, reigned the queen of the land. Her domain was a tapestry of sprawling forests, towering mountains, and golden plains. Flowers bloomed in her footsteps, and the wind whispered her name through the leaves. They were monarchs of separate worlds, mighty and solitary, unaware of the other's existence. One day, a violent storm, born of a celestial clash, ravaged the coast. The queen of the land stood on the cliffs, her heart aching for the chaos below. She watched as the sea raged, a wild beast she could not tame. And then she saw him. The king of the sea rose from the churning waves, his form majestic against the fury of the storm. He was calming the waters, his commands echoing in the thunder. Their eyes met across the tempest, his, the deep, mysterious blue of the abyss. Hers, the warm, vibrant green of the earth. In that moment, the storm in their own hearts stilled. A connection as old as time and as new as the dawn sparked between them. Drawn by this invisible force, the king began to visit the shores. He would rise from the depths, bringing her gifts of iridescent shells and sea-worn jewels. The queen would wait for him, weaving garlands of starlight moss and night-blooming jasmine for his hair. They would walk for hours along the liminal space where sand met water, sharing tales of their disparate kingdoms. He spoke of silent, sunken cities and leviathans that swam in eternal darkness. She described the symphony of the forest at dawn and the warmth of the sun on ancient stones. Their love grew with each clandestine meeting, a secret bloom nourished by stolen moments between tides. It was an impossible love, a bridge between two worlds that were never meant to touch. They knew their union was forbidden, a defiance of the natural order. But in each other's eyes, they found not just a reflection, but a home they had never known. The secret, however, was a fragile thing, as easily shattered as a sand dollar. One of the Queen's royal guards, a loyalist to the traditions of the land, witnessed their meetings. He reported back to the Elder Council of the Earth, a stoic assembly of ancient mountain spirits and primordial forest guardians. Simultaneously, a mermaid duchess, whose heart was set on the Sea King's throne, saw him with the land dweller. She sped through the currents, her tail a silver streak of envy, to inform the Oceanic Court, a cold and rigid hierarchy of ancient sea gods. The reaction was immediate and absolute. The Land Council declared the Queen's love a betrayal, an unforgivable mingling of sacred earth with the chaotic, formless sea. They confined her to her palace, surrounded by impenetrable walls of enchanted thorns. The Oceanic Court was equally furious. They saw the king's affection for a surface dweller as a weakness, a contamination of their pure, aquatic lineage. They imprisoned him in the deepest part of the ocean, a trench so dark that even bioluminescent creatures could not survive, guarded by colossal krakens. Their families believed that separation would sever the bond. They were wrong. Apart, the king and queen felt a pain sharper than any weapon. The land withered under the queen's sorrow. Flowers drooped, leaves turned brown, and the rivers ran sluggishly. The sea grew stagnant and cold, its vibrant colors fading to a dull, lifeless gray. Their love was not just a feeling. It had become a vital force sustaining their worlds. From the depths of his prison, the king heard the silent cry of the dying ocean. From her thorny tower, the queen felt the weakening pulse of the land. They knew they could not return to what they were. Their old lives were gone. Fueled by a desperate strength, they shattered their bonds. The king's roar of defiance split the trench, scattering the krakens like pebbles. The queen's grief-stricken cry caused the enchanted thorns to recoil and turn to ash. They fled, meeting once more on that fateful shore where they first saw each other. The world around them was muted and sad. a reflection of their family's disapproval. They looked at each other, their resolve hardening. There was no going back. They vowed to leave their ancestral homes, to forsake their crowns and their titles. Together, they would venture into the unknown wilderness, a place untouched by either land or sea decree, to build a new life, a new world, just for them. Their journey was not an escape, but a creation. As they turned their backs on their former kingdoms, they felt the ground tremble and heard the roar of the sea. Their families were not letting them go. From the land, an army of stone golems and treants marched, led by the stoic mountain spirits, their footsteps shaking the very foundations of the earth. From the ocean, a legion of armored sharks and serpentine leviathans surged, commanded by the wrathful sea gods, their advance churning the water into a white fury. The pursuit was on. The two families, ancient enemies themselves, had formed a temporary, unholy alliance with a single purpose: to tear the lovers apart. The king and queen found themselves cornered on a vast barren peninsula. The land army advanced from one side, the sea forces from the other. There was no escape. Trapped between the rage of the earth and the fury of the ocean, they looked at one another. There was no fear in their eyes, only a profound, unwavering love. They were no longer just a king and a queen. They were two halves of a single soul, and they would not be broken. The king raised his hand, and the sea itself answered his call. A colossal tidal wave rose, not to crash upon the land, but to form a shimmering, liquid wall behind them, holding back the oceanic legion. The queen touched the barren ground, and from the rock, a forest of immense, ironwood trees erupted, their branches interlocking to form a formidable barrier against the marching golems. The first clash was a cataclysm of elements. Stone fists shattered against living wood, and tridents of hardened water were parried by spears of coral. The air crackled with raw power. The king and queen fought side by side, a perfect, devastating harmony. He moved with the fluid grace of the currents, his weapon a trident that hummed with the ocean's power. She was the unyielding strength of the earth, her every step causing the ground to shift and bend to her will. They fought against their own kin, the king parrying the charge of a great white shark he had once considered a friend, the queen redirecting the attack of a forest guardian who had taught her to speak with trees. Each blow was a painful severing of an old tie, a necessary sacrifice for their new future. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity. The families were relentless, their fury fueled by millennia of tradition and pride. But they were fighting as two separate armies, united only by their hatred. The king and queen fought as one, their love their greatest strength. They anticipated each other's moves, covered each other's weaknesses, and amplified each other's power. Their combined might was something the world had never seen, a force born of the union of land and sea. In a final, desperate act, the leaders of the two families charged. The eldest mountain spirit and the most ancient sea god lunged for the couple. But with a single, unified cry, the king and queen unleashed a wave of pure energy, a perfect fusion of earth and water that sent their attackers reeling back, their armies broken and scattered. Silence fell upon the battlefield. The land army retreated into the earth, the sea legion sank back into the depths, leaving behind a world scarred and broken. The king and queen stood alone amidst the devastation, exhausted but victorious. The sky above was a blank canvas, the land around them quiet and empty. They had won their freedom, but the cost was isolation. They were sovereigns of nothing, rulers of a silent world they had yet to create. They looked at the destruction, not with regret, but with a sense of purpose. This was not an end, but a beginning. They were no longer the king of the sea or the queen of the land. Those titles belonged to a past they had fought to leave behind. They were something new. Standing together on the shore of their new solitary world, they looked at each other and knew who they were now. He was Adam, the first man. She was Eve, the first woman. And this was their Eden, a world born from a love that defied kingdoms and united the elements. Their story would be the first story, the genesis of a new kind of life, one where love was the only law. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into myth and magic, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join us for more epic tales. We'll see you in the next story.